Welcome back to Autism Live. We're so excited. Joining us right now via Skype is Gayle Nobel. She is the mother of 3 adults. She's an author. She's a transformative life coach, parent mentor, blogger, and inspirational speaker. And I mentioned before that she has a lifelong connection to autism. We're going to talk to her about what that is. She has a BA in special education and elementary education, and she received life coach training through the International Coach Academy and Michael Neal's Super Coach Academy. And she's got several books out, but her newest book is titled Space of Love. And we're going to talk to her about that. Gayle, so welcome to the show, Gayle.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
It's great to have you here. So tell us, what is your connection to autism?
Well, my brother, who is just 16 months younger than I am, has severe autism. And he was born in 1960 when we were just barely out of and maybe still in the refrigerator mother theory of autism, which is amazing that that used to actually be a thing.
Yeah.
And he was put in an institution from the time he was about 5. So I didn't really grow up with him. I grew up more visiting him and not really understanding what was going on with him. And then I had my own first child with autism in 1983, my son, Kyle. And he and my brother are very, very similar. So I feel like I've been immersed in autism forever, even before I knew what it was.
What an interesting perspective and point of view you must have, because I have another friend who, she had a Down syndrome brother, and she didn't really understand her mother and her mother's relationship with her brother, and now she has a child with autism. And like I keep saying to her, you should write a book just about your relationship with your mother and how that changed based on you becoming a mother. And it was a different issue. But I'm sure for you, that's got to be a power-packed relationship with having looked at how your mother dealt with it at a different time in a different era, and then how you chose to deal with it. Do you ever write about that, Gayle?
I think I did touch upon it just a little bit in my very first book, which came out in 2006. It's all about attitude. I haven't actually written a whole lot about that, but that's an idea.
I'm planting that idea. So let's talk about your newest book, though, Space of Love. And you say this is you going deeper than ever before. What do you mean by that?
Well, I really share my experience with my son, as I did with my first 2 books. And in this book, however, I saw something very powerful in my coach training, and that has to do with the human experience. And it pretty much rocked my entire world and my understanding of the human experience, and my experience in particular. So I really wanted to share this with people. I really wanted to share with people the power of thought and the power of wisdom, hence the subtitle, because I feel like especially wisdom is sort of an unappreciated, lesser-known superpower that we have. And as parents of kiddos with autism, and I was just talking about this with a client yesterday, we are put in all kinds of situations at all times where we kind of need to figure out what to do. And a lot of times we don't know. And that causes a lot of internal struggle with us because we think we have to know, we think we have to fix. And one of the things I want to share with people is that we are connected to a power source, and it's called wisdom. And it's something from within, and it is also something outside of us in a way that is there for us in any situation. And we can always figure out what to do. We may wish we did it differently the next time, but it's always there for us.
Amazing.
And I wish I had known that in the beginning of my journey. So that's just one piece.
Okay, and so is that the main, if there were one message that you would like for readers to take to heart from reading Space of Love, would that be the message?
Yeah, yes and no. So yes, but also there's something else even deeper that I share with readers, and that is that we each are incredibly, incredibly resilient, and we kind of have what I like to refer to as a diamond or a gem inside that gets caked over and buried over with all of our busy-minded thinking and our upset and that kind of thing. And it goes into full force when we have a child with autism. But I want people to know that that diamond or that space of love is always there, and it's always available for people to settle back into, even in the most difficult times with their children.
And so you mentioned that this book there is a portion of it that's about your relationship with your son and that it talks about autism. But is this just a book about autism, or is this something bigger that might be helpful to people no matter if they have a child on the spectrum or not?
Absolutely. So it isn't just a book about autism. It's really a book about life as told through my stories of living with somebody with autism. And he happens to be my biggest challenge, but we each have something, or more than one something. So readers have told me that even though they just have no connection to autism, they were able to get a lot from reading it, just in understanding life and in understanding their own situations. So it goes well beyond autism.
Okay, so the book is Space of Love. The subtitle is Power of Thought and Wisdom in Living with Autism. Where can people get the book?
So the book is pretty much available everywhere. It's also available as an audiobook, and the narration is absolutely exquisite. It wasn't narrated by me, but it was narrated by another coach and mom of son on the spectrum. And the book can be purchased on Amazon. It's in ebook, print, and audio. It's on iBooks, really all the platforms. It can be purchased directly on my website. But it's very easy, no matter where you are in the world, to get a hold of it.
And we also mentioned that you are a life coach, and so if people, excuse me, if people wanted to know more about connecting with you in terms of that, where should they go?
So that would be through my website, which is GayleNobel.com, GayleNobel.com, and they can connect with me there, send me a message, and we can go from there. I also have a lot of blog posts on there, several years worth. So people want to read more. Some people have finished Space of Love and say, I want more, I want more. So I send them over to blog.
I think that life coaching is one of the great misunderstood things in the world. So I'd love to give you just a minute or so here to talk with people about what kinds of things. And I would assume that you don't just work with parents that are on the autism spectrum, although I'm sure you're great with parents. But what kinds of things does your life coaching help to offer people to help propel their life in a better direction?
Well, you're exactly right. And I do love working with parents of children with autism, but I work with other people as well. And a lot of the people that find their way to me are often people that are feeling stuck or stressed, and they're wanting to move forward in some sort of way. Maybe they're changing jobs, or just wanting to find more peace, or just trying to figure something out. So those are a lot of times the people that end up finding me, or that I end up finding. And I share a lot of the things that I share in the book, only magnified and personalized, of course, to the person. But we do talk a lot about that wisdom piece. And I kind of guide them to really understanding their own wisdom and finding some of their answers. So as a coach, I don't tell people what to do, but I'm very much a facilitator of them seeing and figuring out what they might want to do, and it might be buried. So I ask a lot of questions. And one of the magic things about coaching is that the client or person, because I've been a client many times, gets to hear themselves speak out loud. And there's something about that, the way the brain processes hearing your thoughts spoken out loud rather than in here doing that churning thing, to where you hear new things and you discover beliefs that you didn't know that you had that maybe aren't really serving you. You just seem to have access to a lot more than you do when you're in your own head. If that makes sense.
It totally does. Later on, when you have an opportunity to watch the whole show back, you'll see that you and I have like a Vulcan mind meld today, because our topic for this week is manifestation, and our question of the day was, if you had one wish, what would it be? And we were talking about just exactly this thing. So it makes total sense to me, and I think it will resonate with a lot of our viewers. That I believe that as a parent of an individual who was diagnosed with autism at 2.5, that, there was this thing that happened to me that I felt like new mission, which was great for me, make no mistake about that, new mission, but I lost a piece of myself along the way, because I thought that if I only had my hopes for him, that I couldn't have hopes for myself anymore. And I think that happens to a lot of autism parents that are, in fact, I've been saying the last couple of weeks, I'm trying to not use the term that I'm an autism parent anymore, because it only defines me through my son, and I'm trying to get back to a place where I let him define himself and I define myself differently in this exploration of me coming back to being separate from my child, because it's very easy for us to get so entrenched in our child's experience that that's who we become. I think that a lot of people that have kiddos on the spectrum could use a life coach, right?
Well, yeah, I agree. And sometimes we are busy, putting our 100%, like you said, into our child, whether it be our energy or our emotional state or our finances, that we kind of come last. But what you said is really important. And one of the really important things is the fact that you notice that. So I work a lot with clients on just noticing. So rather than coming away from my sessions with kind of a lot of homework, often it's just notice, just pay attention, and you don't even have to fix it. But when you notice it and you shine the light on something, it automatically starts to evolve, because your wisdom kicks in and says, hey, I think I want to define myself and describe myself differently. And I notice that I describe myself this way. It almost can be effortless once you notice something. So I love what you said.
Well, I love everything that you're saying. And again, the latest book is Space of Love, and you can get that at most major sellers, but you can also get it on Gayle's website, which is Gayle Nobel. .com. There we have it. But you've written 2 other books. You've got the book It's All About Attitude, and then the second book, which is Breathe, which is, I'm laughing because we talk about that all the time, that sometimes the answer is just to breathe. And so how are these books different from each other?
The first book, It's All About Attitude, was written with my friend. So it has a co-author. So Kathy Almeida and I wrote this book. And it was an amazing journey that we had together. She has a son, same age as mine, with autism, lives on the other side of the country. And we wrote this book kind of long distance. And it took us a really long time, because we were a lot of stop and start. But we wrote it together. And that one was really, again, it was short personal stories. And also the stories of our friendship were kind of woven throughout the book in short snippets. Because our connection, this was pre-internet, so I'm dating myself, right? Our connection of having phone calls every couple weeks was really important and powerful. So that was that book. And then after that book came out, people were kind of saying, well, I get that it's all about attitude, but what do I do? And it forced me to look inside and say, well, what am I doing? What do I do? And breathing was one of them, and yoga. So I wrote another book, this one by myself, but with photographs in it that were taken by my daughter. And this one was kind of a toolbox. So there were short stories, and each one contained a tool, like something very simple that the reader could do. And that was the second book. And then I thought I was finished writing books. And this one bubbled up and said, "You got to write me." So I did.
Well, and I got to say, I started this interview with, I think you have a unique perspective. I think book 4, I would love, I would be very interested in looking at what it's like to be a daughter of a mother who had a special needs child. Like, I think that's a very unique perspective. And there had to have been pluses and minuses to that. And that had to have in some way impacted how then you became a special needs mom. And I think that we're just going to see that there are more and more people who will describe themselves this way. Because all of our children are now going to go have children, and they, you know, in any case, I've made my point, Gayle. I've assigned you a 4th book.
Yeah.
We'll
Well,
look
I
forward
love
to
that topic, and I might just dabble in terms of a blog post or two
There you go.
with that. But there is a lot there. Yeah, there's probably a whole lot there. My parents aren't alive anymore, so I just have to go on, you know, my past experience and conversations with them. And, you know, it's tricky because they lived in such a different time and such a different generation of where you hid children with autism. You know, you didn't see them, and they certainly didn't go to school. I mean, the public law came into effect in the 70s. So,
But even then, I'm wondering, so your brother was removed from the home and put in a placement at the age of 5. And when your son was diagnosed, because he's a little bit older, I know my son is 16, and on the day that my son was diagnosed, the developmental pediatrician, as I was having a moment, you know, she said, "Oh, you're so lucky, because if this had been, you know, however many years earlier, I would be telling you to just put this child in an institution and walk away." And I know in that moment, I was looking at my 2.5-year-old going, "What?" Like, I couldn't even imagine. When your son was diagnosed, did you have a little moment? Did they talk about, was the expectation that he was going to stay living with you? Or was there this, did your mother say, "Oh, well, you'll need to put him into an institution"? Was there anything about that?
no, nobody said that.
I'm so glad.
My mother certainly didn't say it. And nobody said that, although I've heard people I mean, my son's 35, but I've heard people of children his age and maybe even younger hint that that was told to them, but that was never told to me.
I'm so glad.
I was a very active parent, and I homeschooled him for a really long time. So not only did I keep him at home, but I actually created a whole team of people that came to work with him out of the house.
Wow. You made it happen.
Yeah.
Well, again, I think there's so much more there. Unfortunately, we're out of time, but I think a blog or a book, I'll let you choose, Gayle. The universe is calling.
Well, what comes out, you know.
Yeah. All right. Well, it's been such a pleasure talking to you. We want to say again that your website is GayleNobel.com, but it's Gayle with a Y. Traven's got it on the screen for you there. And you can look and see more about what Gayle has written, and because she's very prolific, and definitely get her book Space of Love. And if you're interested in life coaching, then you can take a look at that on her website. Gayle, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, you have a good day.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Hey, thanks for watching Autism Live. To subscribe, click here. And if you'd like to check out some more of our videos, click here.